Hi, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Pelletier again. And today I chose 4 books by a woman named Helen Lester. And she wrote this book, Hooway for Wodney, Listen Buddy, All for Me, and Princess Penelope's Parrot. We're going to start with this one, Hooway for Wodney. And if you look at the back of this book, it says Honors and Awards for Hooway for Wodney Wat. She won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 awards for this one book. She always puts a little humor in her stories, so we're gonna laugh when you read this. And then when you listen to this. And then, but she also has a lesson that's learned. So this is Rodney, and he's a rat. But he has a little bit of a difficult time saying his R's. So when he says, instead of saying rat, he says wat. And instead of saying Rodney, which should be an R here, he says Wodney, okay? So we're gonna read to find out what happens and why, think about why she won so many awards from writing this book. Okay, Hooway for Wodney Wat. And she dedicated this book to her son. It says, to my son and hero, Jamie. Poor Wodney, Wodney Wat. His real name was Rodney Rat, but he couldn't pronounce his R's. To make matters worse, he was a rodent, a wodent. So a rodent is like a mouse or a guinea pig or a hamster or a rat. So again, he couldn't say rodent with an R, so he said wodent. What's your name, Wodney? Asked the other rodents. Wodney Wat, whispered Wodney. What's another name for bunny? They asked knowingly. Wabbit, he mumbled. I want you to be thinking about what they're doing to him. And see how he's answering them? Wodney Wat, whispered Wodney. And then he mumbles, Wabbit, because he can't pronounce them correctly, right? So think to yourself, how do you think he's feeling? And look at what Helen Lester's friend, who is Lynn Munsinger, she does all the illustrations. Look at how he's feeling. Pretty sad, huh? And how does a train travel? They winked at each other. And he said, a twain travels on twain tracks, Wodney replied miserably. So think about that. They're making fun of him. They're asking him these questions, and they know that he can't pronounce his R's correctly. So he says it a little differently. And they're laughing. And look at him, his head's down. And see, what's interesting is the words don't say how he feels, but when you look at the pictures, it tells us a lot more information. Take these off here. All of this teasing day in and day out made Wodney the shyest rodent in his elementary school. So if he's shy, talk to the person next to you about how he might act. His squeak could barely be heard in class. He gnawed his lunch alone. Okay, so if he's shy, that means that he really doesn't like to be around a lot of people. And he's very quiet. And look at that. When it says he gnawed his lunch alone, there's his cheese. And when you gnaw something, you kind of munch on it. You nibble. You eat it. And look at everybody else is here, and poor Rodney is over there all by himself. And while the other rodents scurried and scooted about at recess, Wodney hid inside his jacket. Look at him. And if rodents scurry and scoot, that means they run around really fast. If you scurry, that means you run really fast and scoot around. And poor Rodney is just by himself with his jacket over his head. Then one day, as the rodents were taking turns doing wheelies, a new rodent, a very large rodent, barged into the classroom and announced, "My name is Camilla Capybara." Now, a capybara is a real animal, and it's one of the largest rodents, actually. It is the largest rodent in the world, a capybara. So Camilla Capybara, she barges in, and when you barge in somewhere, that means you force your way in. Look at that, and look at her face. "I'm bigger than any of you, I'm meaner than any of you, and I'm smarter than any of you." Then she added, "So there." So what kind of a personality do you think she has? Talk to the person sitting next to you, or just think in your brain, what kind of a person is she? I think she's very confident. She's a little rude. She just barges right in. And she kind of brags. "I'm bigger, I'm meaner, I'm smarter." Let's see what happens. With that, this is interesting. She accidentally, on purpose, elbowed an ear, bumped two noses, stepped on three tails, and lay down on a desk. When Helen Lester uses that phrase, "accidentally on purpose," that means that she tried to probably make it look like an accident, but she really did it on purpose. She elbowed somebody, and then she bumped two noses, and then she stepped right on their tails. Oh my gosh. Fur prickled in fear throughout the classroom. Ooh, that's a nice way of saying that. Instead of just saying, "all of the animals are scared," she said, "fur prickled in fear throughout the classroom." Think about that. If you're scared, you know how sometimes you get goosebumps and you feel chills? When animals get scared, their fur stands straight up. So if they're fearful, if they're scared, their fur is going to prickle. Ooh. She sure was bigger than any of them, and she sure looked meaner than any of them. But was she smarter than any of them? We don't know. Let's see. Let's see what happens. "What's 2 + 2? asked Miss Fuzzleworth. "4, shouted Camilla Capybara, without even bothering to raise her paw. Well, she's rude too now. She just shouts out. "And furthermore, 4 + 4 = 8. 8 + 8 is 16. And 243 + 125 is 368. Later, when Miss Fuzzleworth asked, "What's the capital of—" Camilla interrupted. Oh my gosh, that means she got right in before anybody else, even before Miss Fuzzleworth could finish her sentence. She said, "New York, Albany, population 295,594. And during science, in answer to the question, what part of the plant is below the ground, Camilla Capybara danced on her desk and sang, 'Root, root, rooty toot toot.'" Yup, thought all of the other rodents. She's smarter than we are too. They felt very, very uncomfortable. Look at that, and you can tell from their faces. And she's just all over the place. She's hopping on the desks, interrupting everybody. Wow, she's not very kind. Every afternoon, just before the final recess, Miss Fuzzleworth drew a name from her hat to see who would be the leader for their favorite game, Simon Says. She scrunched her eyes and scrunched her eyes, that means she closed them up, and she jiggled the hat, that means she jiggled it, she moved it and shook it like this. Would it be Hairy Hamster, Minnie Feet Mouse, Grizzle Fitz Guinea Pig? Could it be Big, Mean, Smart Camilla Capybara? Now think about it. I'm going to read this this last part again, when she says all of their names, what are you noticing about all of their names? Hairy hamster, mini feet mouse, Grizzle Fritz guinea pig, and Camilla capybara. What do you notice about their names? I'm noticing that she was very clever, this Helen Lester. She took the name of the animal, like for example, mouse, and she put the first name has the same first letter, mini feet mouse. Instead of just saying this is hamster, she calls him hairy hamster. And guinea pig, it's Grizzle Fritz guinea pig. Isn't that interesting? So that's funny. It makes it kind of funny. Miss Fuzzleworth's paw reached in and pulled out the name of Wodney Wat. The bell rang. There was a wild scurry for the door, and Camilla Capybara was the first on the playground, having trampled the others in her path. So let's see. How do you think that Wodney's feeling right now? He's been chosen to be the leader. Now think about how he feels. He's kind of shy. Now he's going to lead the class in Simon Says. So he'll say, Simon Says, put your hand on your head, and everybody has to follow him. So let's see how he feels. Think about that. To Wodney, she looked especially scary. What would she do when she heard him speak? Now he doesn't pronounce his R's correctly, so she's thinking, oh no, she's going to be awful to me. Breathe capybara breath in his face. Would she do that? See, this is what he's thinking. He's dreaming this, like he's picturing what might happen. Or tie him up in his own tail. Oh, look at that. This didn't really happen yet, but this is what he's thinking might happen. It's a thought bubble. Or even pounce on him. And see, if you pounce on something, that means you jump right on top. And poor Wodney's underneath there. Underneath him. So that's what he's thinking. Oh my gosh, if he knows she's the leader, that's what she might do to me. The tiny, trembling leader of the game stood before the eager players, his head well inside his jacket, and he squeaked, Wodney says, weed the sign. This says PS 142 Elementary School for Rodents. While the other rodents read PS 142 Elementary School for Rodents, Camilla began pulling up weeds around the sign and wildly flinging them hither and yon till she was clear up to her teeth in dirt. The other rodents began to smile. Okay, now let's think about this. He said, Wodney says, weed the sign. Now everybody else, what do you think he wanted to say? Remember, he can't pronounce his R's. So instead of saying, read the sign, which is what his friends did because they know how he talks, she thought he said, well, which he did, he said, weed the sign. So look at, she's pulling up all of the weeds around the sign. And all of the other rodents are smiling because they know that's not what he said. Let's see what happens. So this is the funnier part, right? Wodney says, wrap your paws around your head. He peeked a little peek out of his jacket. Look at the poor thing. He's so scared of Camilla Capybara that he's got his jacket over his head. So you know what happens? He saw her whap, whap, whappity, slappity, slappity, whap. She's whapping herself. She's slapping herself because that's what he said to do. And whapping her paws around her head so hard she became dizzy and gave herself a headache and had to sit down. The other rodents couldn't stop giggling. So what are they doing? They're wrapping, he wanted to say, wrap your paws around your head. And that's what they're doing. They went like this. If you wrap your paws around your head, your paws are around like this. She thought he said whap. So he's literally hitting herself on the head. So they are giggling. They're laughing at, who are they laughing at though? Ask yourself that. Are they laughing at Camilla or are they laughing at Wodney? Look at that. I think they're laughing at her because she doesn't understand him. So she's doing something different than everybody else. Wodney says, play wing around the wosy. Camilla put her arms like wings and made an airplane noise. But where was the wosy? What was a wosy? So she thought he said wing around the wosy. He meant to say ring around the rosy. Ring around the rosy is a little song that you usually play, that you usually sing while you're holding hands with your friends. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That's what they knew he meant to say, even though it didn't sound like that. She does not really know Wodney and how he talks. So she thought that she was supposed to pretend she was a plane and have wings, and then she fell down the hill. By now, Wodney's voice was stronger and his head was entirely out of his jacket. Why do you think his head's out of his jacket right now? Remember, he usually is shy. He's very reserved. He doesn't like to talk to people because he can't pronounce his R's. Well, now he's out of his jacket. Talk to the person next to you about that. See, I think now he's realizing she's not following. All of his friends are laughing at Camilla. I think they're actually liking what's happening here and maybe respecting Wodney a little bit differently. Wake the leaves. Nobody moved. Wodney says, wake the leaves. Look at what she's doing. She picked up a leaf, and this is what she says. While Hairy, Minnie Feet, and Grizzle Feet and the others busied themselves raking, because that's what he meant to say, rake the leaves. He can't pronounce his R's. He says, wake the leaves. Camilla Capybara grabbed one leaf, and she said, wake up, she yelled, because she thought he said, well, he did, wake the leaves, like wake them up. So now they must be really laughing. She snatched another, come on, you, up, 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 and another, rise and shine, and another, boo. By now, all the other rodents were squealing with laughter, all but Camilla, who frowned. Stupid leaves, they won't wake up. And why was everyone laughing at her? Such bullies. Why were they laughing at her? Did Wodney really tell her to, did he really want her to wake up the leaves? No. He wanted them to rake the leaves. Okay? So let's think about how he's changing. He used to be a shy little rat, and now he's got a bigger voice. In a voice so strong, he had to hold his own ears. Wodney called, Wodney says, go west. The rodents collapsed in a happy heap for a rest, right? He says go west. He really means go rest. So they're resting. But what does she hear? She just understands go west. So she starts walking west. Camilla Capybara, feeling very strong, very smart that she could tell directions by the sun, said, all right, I shall go west. And then she added, so there. West she stomped forever. She was gone. So she just kept walking in that direction, west, right? So, and from that day on, pupils of PS 142 Elementary School for rodents teased never teased Wodney again. He was their hero. Hooway for Wodney Wat, they cried. Woot, woot, wooty, toot, toot. Okay? So it's a happy ending, isn't it? And you see how in the very beginning of the story, how did he feel? He was whispering. They were bullying him, weren't they? They weren't making him feel very, very nice because they asked him questions and they knew how he would answer. He wouldn't answer using his R's, so it sounded funny, and they were making fun of him. And the poor Wodney felt so sad and alone. But then in the end, they appreciated it because they were so scared of Camilla that actually what he was doing was making them feel better, right? And she was actually, they were actually able to make her look a little different, right? She was not following the directions that he actually meant to say. And because they knew him so well, they followed the directions. So now he's a hero in their eyes because he beat the bully, right? So what lesson do you think that Helen Lester wants us to learn from this story? Think about that and talk to your partner or talk to whoever's sitting next to you. I think there's probably a lesson here that, you know what, it's okay to be different. And even though he couldn't pronounce his R's, it's all right. Okay, we have to respect everyone, and look at that. His difference actually ended up being a nice strength. Okay, so talk to the person next to you about why you think this particular book won so many awards. Okay, all right. I hope you enjoyed our first book by Helen Lester. She's a really funny author, and I thought about some of the animals that were in this book. And you know how there were many rodents? I was wondering about them. So I went onto the computer and I looked up guinea pig, I looked up mouse, and I looked up capybara. And so I drew a picture of each one of them. And then I wrote down some fun facts about them. So did you know that guinea pigs are active up to 20 hours a day? Now there are 24 hours in a day, so these guinea pigs do not sleep very much. That's a good thing for parents to know. They're very active. They need their nails trimmed regularly, so their little nails have to be trimmed very on a regular schedule. And they sleep with their eyes open or closed, which is interesting. I didn't know that. And then three interesting facts about a mouse. Mice tails can grow as long as their bodies. Now remember, mouse is one mouse, but when we say mice, it's lots of mice, okay? Mice are usually nocturnal, so that they sleep during the day and they're awake at night. And then a mouse eats 15 to 20 times a day. A lot of eating, but they're very small. And then capybaras are the largest rodents in the world. They are the biggest. They live in families of 10 to 30. So there are 10 to 30 people in their family, and they spend a lot of time in the water. Okay? So maybe you could choose one of these and find some additional facts. You could write your own book, or you could do it in a chart form just like I did.